Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. We are back with editing this time, and this is one of the few times I will catch a chapter right after it was written and published on YouTube. There were quite a few things that were in it that I deliberately left, so let's go ahead and get to them, and you can see some of the processes as I do them instead of coming back to them months or weeks later. Alright, the first one happens when we are talking about Pluto, and it's in the 5th paragraph towards the end. And here is what I posted on Sunday. Only his stoic personality and unwillingness to share anything about his personal life were used as markers of his personality and motivations. Alright, towards the end of that chapter, what we have here is where I say only the stoic mannerisms and unwillingness to share anything about his personal life were used as markers of, and this is where I changed it because the personality was repeated too much, were used as markers of his motivations. Okay, that's the first one. Alright, on to the next one. Now this one, in the writing that I did, there were several times when I used the word familiarity in order to help people get the picture that these characters I'm writing about knew each other's mannerisms, the way they talked, the way they thought, the way things looked. They were close enough to him to understand when things were right and when they were wrong. And as you hear here, "What troubles you, my dear lady? You look to be haunted." Nicholas tried to be comforting, but his own personal pain spilled out with unspoken words on the air of familiarity. That last word, familiarity, I had a difficult time reading it at that point, but this time what I did to change it, to make it a little bit easier to understand, was this way. But his own personal pain spilled out with unspoken words, and only understood by his most familiar friend. That one to me makes a lot more sense than what I had before. Moving on. Alright, this next portion here is more of just a way of letting you know my thought processes and the way I write. When Mia and Braid meet on the entryway to the palace, here after Braid comes back from her mission, she says, in one of her last sentences, Mia asks, "Has someone died?" In a little bit later, there's also the part where her father, Vin, runs into Braid, and the first thing he says is, "My little Rose." Now, the reason why I put both of those in is a type of foreshadowing. There's all kinds of ways to do it, but sometimes I use just little words, little phrases, things that, sometimes you can go back and say, oh, maybe he did mean that, and in this case I really did. Has someone died was, yes, someone had, though they don't know it, that Holland was already passed away. The other one is, my little Rose. When you think of a rose, most people's minds automatically goes to a red rose. And those of you who understand where this story is going, that have had part of the Blood Witch, you've gone through that part of the story already, or the whole story. You understand who Braid is. And a red rose symbolizes a whole bunch of things. And in a bit of irony, and a bit of foreshadowing, and a bit of, for people who know the Blood Witch will understand, blood, a symbol of what is coming for Braid. Alright, on to the next portion. Okay, this one here should be fairly obvious to anyone who writes. I always, or not always, but oftentimes, when I am doing the omnipresent point of view, or the overlord of the story, instead of having like a first person or second person, I usually use past tense. And everything that you guys have seen so far, it's all been done in past tense. Nicholas didn't see royalty. He didn't see respect or a symbol of Ag as he gazed back at the Trodaire in Algonza. What he saw was a delusion brought on by the analysis of events through clouded eyes. Emotions prevented him from seeing clearly. Through the haze of emotional pain and embarrassment, he saw the royals as players and pretenders of glories that only lived as long as Malcolm and Hannah lived. The king is dead, and the queen is not far behind. Here, the king is dead, and the queen is not far behind is wrong. It's just flat out wrong. And why I wrote it that way, subconscious, something pulled out from my memory. So the way it is now is the king was dead, and the queen was not far behind. And now on to the last part, and probably the most significant part, because I'm not really going to play anything audio-wise from the original video. What we're going to do here is talk about why I'm doing things. Those of you who are there live, there was only a few of you this week, which is fine. You noticed probably that I had said that this chapter is going to be much larger, probably double the size. And one of the major reasons is, towards the end, where Mia and Braid talk, and Braid says that she's not going to be able to meet with Nicholas before he has to leave, I am changing that. She is actually going to meet with him and have a discussion, and the reason being is an awful lot of this story is a lot different than what I've done before. This is more of an overview, and I don't get as tight in with the characters as I normally do. Well, I'm going to change that a little bit for Braid and for Nicholas, and in the future for a couple other characters. This is a sad story, and there's parts of me that don't want you to be too tied to any one or group of characters, and there's parts of me that do. To increase the impact, I felt, yeah, I'm going to have that meeting put in there. And it's not going to be here on YouTube, but it will be in the book, where Braid and Nicholas have a heart-to-heart discussion, and they go over things which are going to set up for future events. You'll see those events. They probably won't be anywhere as impactful as they are once I finish with the rest of this chapter. But just to let people know, there's a way of weaving your story with or without having personal connections with many of your characters, if not all of them. The less you have, the weaker your story is. The more you have, the more you have to really understand the people, the motivations, and let them talk to you when you're writing. And I've been fighting with them a little bit, simply because it's my own personal preference, and I don't want people to be too tightly tied to too many of them. Like I said, it is a sad story, and those of you who knew The Blood Witch, there was a phrase in there, and I even had it on one of the commercials, that Veronica's father told her that he had read about the Organzas and their time, and that it was very sad and distressing. So there was the hint, plus the prologue to The Blood Witch is the biggest giveaways as to what happens to part of the family. It is a sad story, and I am still working on whether how sad, how tied in, how engrossed you want to be, or is it more of a history book for the Blood Witch universe. Still working out the odds and ends in it, but I figured I would let you know. Alright, with that we're going to close this one. Have a wonderful day.